Okay, so y'all, thank you so much for stepping up and being here. What we are up to here with Speaking from Being is really, I was thinking about this a lot earlier, like what could be more important than studying this? Maybe being just on its own. However, there's no part of life or very few parts of life that don't involve other people, which means we're always interacting, we're always needing to communicate. And so the subtitle here, activating authentic expression for positive impact. It's a lot of words, right? But that's really what this is about, is to empower you to be yourself fully, express yourself fully, positive impact in all parts of your life, from business to personal, relationships, for influence, for whatever you want it to be. And here's the deal. This is my promise to you, is that you can be a great speaker. Now, that may, I don't know how it is for you, that may fly in the face of your beliefs. I can say for me, when I started out with speaking, well, I'll tell you this. When I was in high school, horrible. So much stress, so much worry about it. I had the mindset that there's no way I can do this. So when I had to give a presentation, how much do you think I prepared for it? Yeah, like not at all, because I was so convinced I couldn't do it anyway. Why even try? And then so many times it happened that I would get up in front of the room and I would and make a fool of myself, feel embarrassed. Even I remember in college needing to give a presentation, and still same thing, the mindset that I couldn't do it, leading me to not prepare myself, leading me to think, okay, I'm just going to wing it, and not great results. Now, I am not yet the greatest speaker in the world. I'll be honest with you. I am on my way, though, to being the greatest transformational entertainer in the world. And the major way that I am on my way to that, and this is the key thing that I'm offering you that will trip you up if you don't solve this one thing, and that is your belief in yourself, your mindset about the fact that you can be a great speaker, an effective speaker, a competent speaker. You can fill in whatever way you want for saying it. So, what's the number one fear in the world? Right? Public speaking. Is it true? I don't know, but certainly that's the urban myth. Such a big fear. Fascinating. We'll talk more about why that might be, but let's move on here, because actually I want to give you the agenda first, right? So what we're going to do, and this is going to be like lightning. There's so much that we could do in this this event, but the plan here for us today is to, one, empower you to greatness. And we've started on that. I so encourage you to step up to the belief that you absolutely can be effective and authentic and have it be enjoyable. How we're going to do that is, one, going to give you some understanding, some new mental models for how authentic communication works, how speaking from being works. I'll explain more of what that means in a little bit. Well, in part of that, we'll be talking about what being actually is, what speaking actually is, and then where the rubber meets the road is in doing some actual practice of this. It doesn't end there, though, because after that, you need some feedback. We all need feedback in order to be great. Now, let's step back, though, because I told you a little bit about how I got here from being just absolutely pathetic with speaking to realizing at some point, if I'm going to have the impact I want to have in the world, the life I want to have, I gotta learn to do this better. And so part of how I did that was I stepped onto stage a lot, and I sucked. Many times I really just sucked and made a fool of myself, but that's part of how I got to some improvement. Specifically, though, how I got here and how y'all got here, whether you know it or not yet, to this particular event is through something called the Ultimate Coach. And I say something because, as you can probably tell from this image, it's a book. However, it's also much more than a book, right? This is a book about a being by the name of Steve Hardison, but it's more than a book about a being. It's a book about being itself, right? It's a book about who we are being, how to be who you want to be. So a couple of thanks right up front. One is to Amy Hardison, who is Steve Hardison's wife, and Alan B. Thompson, because it was the two of them that really took this from being a concept and something that Steve didn't even want to actually being a book that has positively impacted the lives of so many people, myself included, in a really big way. And I'm super grateful for that. Also, thanks to Joan Claire, who's here with us today, because she is in charge of the Book of Being, the Ultimate Coach LinkedIn group. And it was through her creating that we got connected. And I said, hey, maybe I could offer something that would be of value to that group. So that group, the LinkedIn group, is all about bringing being. I know we haven't talked about that. We will in a moment. Bringing being into business, and an essential component of business, of course, is communication. And it could go without saying, I won't though, thanks especially to Steve Hardison himself, because it's through his life, who he created himself to be, through his service, through his work as a coach and leader, that all of this has come to be. So moving onward, right, we talked about this plan. So what is being? What does it mean? Like, for some of us, if we've been in certain spiritual circles, certain conversations, that may seem like an obvious thing. For others, maybe not so easy to understand. You can think of it in terms of being, or who we are, our identity, our vibration, the thoughts that we have, the states that we live in. That is primary, that is core. Everything else in our life, what we say, what we do, what we attract, what we perceive, all of that comes from who we are being. The classic example is, if you have an apple seed, that is being. If you plant an apple seed, what are you going to get? Oranges, pears, grapefruit? No, you're going to get an apple tree. In the same way, if any of us are being love, being loving, well, whatever situation we walk into, what we're going to say, how we're going to act is going to be love. Or if we're being angry, no matter what the situation, we're going to find a way to argue, to vent. So being is primary, which means it's the highest leverage, the most important place to put our intention to create the effects we want in our life. Our thoughts and our emotions, all of that create our state of being. So that is the fastest ever whirlwind discussion of what being is. Hopefully that makes sense. We can talk about it more. I can point you in the direction of some further resources on that. Of course, the Book of Being, entitled The Ultimate Coach, is a great place. If you haven't read it or listened to it, highly recommend that. Going further, though, one way we can build this bridge from being into speaking is this. It's been a favorite quotation of mine for almost 30 years. Since I stepped onto stage, since I started training other people to lead, to teach, Emerson said, "Who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear a word you say." And if we could boil this entire experience for y'all down to one thing, it is that. When you step onto stage, when you step into a communication with your partner, when you step into any sort of situation where you are attempting to get a result through communication, your being, how you are being, is so much more important than the words you say, the body language you have, any of that. More detail to come on that soon. And a great question that comes up so often in the world of speaking, and whether that's so part of what I do in terms of my communication is I'm a performer, right? I'm a teacher, I'm a coach. I also make videos for YouTube, and I have a live video show, a podcast. These are all different formats where I am speaking, especially when it comes to video, which is such an important part of business these days. Question all the time, should I make a script or should I speak spontaneously? Should I partially script? Should I use bullet points? There's no right answer. There can be benefits to either, and generally speaking, especially for what we're doing, I highly encourage you to move away from scripting and more into spontaneous, or what can be called extemporaneous speaking. On that note, Eisenhower said this about public speaking. Oh, wait, no, he wasn't talking about public speaking. It applies so well for any form of communication, though. Plans are worthless, but planning is essential. And if you take that back to the idea of scripting or not scripting, well, I'm advising you don't script. I'm also advising you plan. So what does that mean? Really, what it means more. Oh, wait, we're not ready for those. Oh, missing a slide. Okay, that's all right. The next slide that's not here, what it says, just got to take my word for it, is rehearsal and training, right? Now, let's explain for a moment the difference between scripting and not scripting and the effectiveness, right? And you know what, let's get into a little bit of discussion about this here. And so the rest of the format, I've said basically the overview of what I want to share with you. Have a little bit of discussion here, and then I'm going to invite any of y'all that are courageous enough, all of you are courageous enough, to actually get some practice in this, and we're going to create an atmosphere of really helpful feedback for you so that we can all learn. So right now, though, I'd love to hear from any of y'all that are willing to share. What do you know about the pros and cons of scripting or not scripting, or what would you guess? So if you are up for sharing your perspective, you can raise your virtual hand or your actual hand. Either one works. I appreciate that so many of y'all are on video here. All right, Reno, please bring it on. What you got to say?
Hey Daniel, hey everyone. So my experience is that, and I actually just had an experience with this recently. I'm on a podcast and I decided to write down notes in response to some of the questions that I'd be asked on the podcast. Now, this is out of character for me because generally I speak on the fly, but I thought, let me give this a try. What I noticed was that the moment I started attempting to regurgitate what I had written down, it became very cerebral. Like it was very heady. And I felt disconnected from my body in a way. And so when the next round of questions came around, I actually admit it out loud live on the podcast. I said, it's funny, I was trying this new thing where I write everything down and then I attempt to regurgitate it. It doesn't work for me. So I'm going to put it aside now and I'm just going to speak from the heart. And so what I've seen is when I have bullet points, right, that's helpful when I sort of consider what I want to speak about beforehand and maybe who I want to be when I'm speaking as well. That's really helpful. And then from there, it seems what comes through is more inspired, more intuitive, more responsive, and more from the moment and what is occurring in the moment and what is present in the moment, as opposed to, some sort of intellectualized expression, if you will.
Awesome. That is so great what you said. You said a lot of things that are super valuable in that. Thank you, Reno. And I forgot to say in the beginning, when you step out on the stage here too, please say your name as you did. And where are you from, Reno?
So I'm on the West Coast in Coast Salish territory, also known as Vancouver, British Columbia.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Oh, is
Awesome.
Andrea from there too? Oh my goodness, that's so cool. There's two of us here. I love that.
BC in the house. I love it. So, and you did something amazing, which is worth highlighting, what you did on that podcast, which is you spoke authentically and you could say you made a mistake and you admitted your mistake. People love that because these days, especially if anything is too perfect, we don't trust it, right? If it's like, wait a minute, what's going on with that? And absolutely what you said is true. This is the hugest problem we have with scripting and a certain type of planning. There is a planning that is very valuable, but a certain type of scripting or planning is if we try and it's like, the difference when somebody reads something, right, versus speaking something. They go to read something and they say, well, I'd love to go to dinner with you on Friday. And it's just like it loses the energy. It becomes so flat and unreal. What we respond to is the reality, the authenticity of the energy. Awesome. Thank you, Reno. Jesse, what you got? And where are you calling in from? Calling
I'm
in.
from Virginia, USA.
Excellent. Thank you. So tell
Yeah,
us.
yeah. For me, I feel like if somebody's trying to script and read, it is not coming from the heart. I feel like, you know, it's not authentic, I feel like. But it's important to practice. If you have slides, I like slides because that gives me a point to speak on and then go from it. That's what I like. But I don't like scripting. Then I feel like I have to learn it by heart. What if I make a mistake? So I like to, but I like to know what I'm going to talk about and then practice in my head a couple of times to make sure that I'm going to talk about what I want to say.
Beautiful. Well said. And and so yes, absolutely. It's authenticity that people respond to. The big problem with scripting is, well, the longer the script is, the more you have to try and remember, the more you're in the head. And you can put it this way, being in the head or thinking about speaking is the enemy of authentic speaking. Like authentic speaking comes when we're not thinking about it. And that's why, yes, the preparation is important because it becomes ingrained in us. It becomes part of who we are. Let's go to the flip side for a minute, though, because I don't want to give you the impression that all scripting is bad. Scripting can be fantastic. Go ahead, Howard. You want to say something?
Well, I just recently have been asked to do a couple of keynotes one was with 370 people and one was with 150 people. And that was a little new for me. I'm in a hotel room getting ready to present tomorrow. I'm in New York State. And the one with 370, I knew that the first 20 minutes had to be sharp and it had to be a bit performative. Although I did get coaching from someone who was going to be there, who had been in one of my workshops, said, Howard, share that personal story. And I went, oh, save that for me. He said, no, share that up front. And that story, I think, really landed for people because that was something very authentic. And that one just came out of me. I had the slide up and I knew just what I was going to say. Some of the other slides had to be some relevant information for these educators. And then at one point, I got totally lost. Like you lost a slide. I misread a slide for something. And I kind of went there when I said, oh, I got lost. Oops. And I later asked the people who would hire me, they said, oh, I said, we hope that was okay. Oh, man, it just made you look so human. So there's this really fine balance. I did like that quote about planning because when I was preparing it, I was authentically creating the script, which I knew eventually I wanted to know well enough that I didn't read it, pretty much didn't read it. I had it, I would say I even memorized it. I kind of went with the flow, but I needed to have it's somewhat scripted because it was a 90-minute presentation. And the first 10, 15 minutes, I had to get people all with me. So, and then once I did, it was pretty much improv after that. But so it's a fine line.
It really is, and it depends. Thank you for sharing that, Howard. And it depends so much on what the context is and what the purpose is. So if you go to the highest echelons of public speaking, right, and there are public speakers that get paid $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, $1 million for one speech, one performance. And at that level, it's scripted, right? Word for word, not only scripted, it's what's called in the theater business blocked. That means they know where on the stage they're going to be at what time. There is a nuance to everything. But here's the thing. This is the key distinction. If one is going to script, you have to practice so much that you can deliver your scripted presentation in an authentic way. That is really challenging and takes a ton of work and practice, rehearsal. However, if you're willing to do this, you will stand out above the crowd so much because most people just won't put in that level of effort, right? Yeah. At the highest levels, and if you want to succeed in that industry, and I say this in large part from education rather than experience, because I'm just moving into that industry. I have educated myself a lot with it, though. In order to compete on that level, you have to be able to deliver something that is so reliable. It's like, has anybody here seen the play Hamilton live? You people, what is wrong with you? Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, it's cost $8 million to see it. I'm with you on that. However, it's totally worth it. And part of why it's totally worth it is because if you go to Hamilton, you know 100% sure they are going to deliver the highest quality every single time because they have worked their asses off, rehearsed so much in order to create that. Now, so that's a little bit, and we could talk more about it, but that's a little bit of what the deal is with scripting. It has its place, and it's really hard to pull it off because you have to practice it so much that you're not thinking about it, that it's coming across naturally and authentically. So what is more often the case for most of us, and in more common situations for most people, though, making a video, getting interviewed, giving a lecture, having a conversation, addressing a team, whatever. Those are the more common types of speaking that we are going to be experiencing. For those types of speaking, we're much better to speak from bullet points, right? And just in case that's not clear, what that means is, yeah, you want to practice. And I'm going to give you a specific method for how to practice and for how to develop those bullet points. And once you got the idea of what are my key points, you want to deliver them not necessarily without knowing exactly how you're going to do it. Yeah, I want to cover this, right? I want to speak about what it's like living in the Andes, right? And I want to speak about the local culture there. And I want to speak about the food there. I'm just making this up, of course, right? But these are the topics I want to speak about. And I know something about those things. I got experience with those things. So I can talk authentically. I can communicate to the people that are in front of me. And that's one of the greatest saviors about speaking from being is, right? I said earlier that the biggest enemy to authentic communication or speaking from being, it's getting in our head. It's thinking about what we're going to say. Or another way of saying it, it's when our reference point is over here. I'm so nervous. What are they going to think about me? I might stumble on my words. I could make a mistake. Like all of those thoughts. Has anybody ever had thoughts like that? Really? No. Come on. Yeah. I mean, we've all had those thoughts, right? Like, oh no, what if I mess this up? What are they going to think about me? Do I have food on my shirt? You know, all these things. All of those thoughts are, who are they about? Right? They're about me. right? It's about their self-referential thoughts. Speaking from being, effective communication comes, even when it's scripted, is when we are focused on who? Me or you, right? It's about when we're focused on the people that we are serving, that we are communicating with. All right. So, because time flies, and I want to make sure this is maximally useful for you, here's what we do. When it comes to, all right, the plans are useless, yet planning is essential, right? Scripting has a place, but more often we're looking for extemporaneous communication. So what do we do? How do we plan, right? Here's something that I recommend and suggest for you. I've experienced this myself, and I first learned this 30 years ago when I was studying writing, creative writing, and it's a different style than a lot of us learned in the beginning, right? A lot of us learned, whether it was speaking or writing, that the thing to do is plan it all out, right? Make a big plan, make an outline, script everything out, make this big plan, and maybe draft that, maybe change it a little bit. But then there came a new model of creativity, and this goes back to in some certain subsections of the university world 35 years ago. And the model was, well, another way of doing it is just do it, right? You just do it. You just write it. You just say it. And then afterwards you pause and you go, huh, what worked? What was good about that? What was strong about that? Because what will happen, and we'll do this in a minute, is if you have 2 minutes to speak about something, right? Not all of those 2 minutes, especially if you're not prepared, are going to be fantastic. However, some parts of those 2 minutes are going to really shine. And there'll be a part where you're like, ooh, you know, when I said that part, that was really good. I felt connected to that, felt real, that felt valuable. So then at the end of it, you give yourself feedback and you say, huh, what was the gold? What were the parts I really liked there? And then you take that and you say, okay, I'm going to hold on to that. I'm going to put that up here on the wall. I'm going to put that in my bullet points. I'm going to put that in my script. And then you just do the whole thing over again, right? And maybe you do it for 2 minutes. Maybe you do it for 1 minute. Why do we do timed sessions? Because time is pressure. Pressure cooks ideas. And part of the planning process, and why we definitely want to practice and train, is because how many of us is it easy or natural to have a conversation with a friend, right? If you're meeting a friend for coffee, do you plan for it? Do you prepare for it? Are you worried that you're inauthentic? No, of course not, right? You're just hanging out with your friend. You're talking like normal. Guess what? That you is your best you when it comes to communicating. So what happens when we step in front of a group? What happens when we step on stage? We go, like we turn into some kind of stiff monster and something strange happens to us because suddenly there's this pressure and we feel weird. I have to deliver. What if I'm not good enough? Our state of being gets contracted. Who we are being becomes nervous, right? So what we practice is with certain pressure so that we can become natural and be ourself even when there is pressure. All right. Does that make sense? What thoughts do you have about that? How's that landing for you? Any questions, any thoughts? What saith y'all?
I love the idea of gradually reducing time because I think it also inspires the increase of power. I think there's what's that phrase? Slow down to speed up. And so the sense I get is like when a time constraint is applied, there's pressure, and perhaps our default is to speed up in that situation. But the invitation here, it sounds like, is to slow down and to regulate. So one of the things I was thinking about as you were speaking too is the relationship between self-regulation and being. Because when I'm regulating, when I'm dysregulated, and I start to sort of breathe and relax and slow down rather than reacting, speeding up, then what comes through is a reflection of that regulation. What comes through is more clear, more focused, and perhaps even more potent.
Yeah, nicely
Yeah.
said. I'm with you. The time has a powerful creative component. And part of what we're doing is getting our brain to work for us rather than against us. Right? The brain it's a goal setting device. If we feed it the right information, it'll lead us where we want to go. And it also, when it comes to speaking, if we empower it, it will speak naturally. It knows how to communicate. And some of what I'm sharing with you about this specifically, I learned from a school of speaking called Ultra Speaking. And if y'all want to go further on your own, highly recommend you connect to their stuff. They have a lot of great free material. And part of what they share is some really good tools for how to use timers effectively. So thank you, Reno, for contributing that. Any other thoughts or questions from y'all about how we practice or this idea? Joan Claire.
Yeah, well, I guess the thanks, Daniel. This is wonderful. The 2 minutes I think is interesting. I heard you say that, I don't know if you said we record it, but having a short time so that we can actually repeat, kind of rinse and repeat and catch the gold, like sift the gold out each time. Whereas if you're talking for 30 minutes and you're recording it and then rewatching it, becomes more laborious, right? So if we just keep a short time and then we record it, see what we went well, take the gold out, do it again, there's a quick turnover of improvement, right? That's what I'm noticing in what you said for a 2-minute practice round, I guess you might call it.
Yeah, that's nicely said. So the couple things worth mentioning about that, we can play with different time frames, and it depends a lot on what we're preparing for, right? If somebody's preparing, like Howard, for a 90-minute presentation, well, he can use 2-minute blocks, and that can be really helpful, but he's also going to have to practice 45-minute blocks. He's going to have to practice a full hour, right? You don't want to show up a full hour and a half for that. However, sometimes what we're preparing for is a 2-minute presentation, or in networking, a 1-minute presentation, or a video that's 7 minutes. So we want to practice what our actual time frame is. And then we also want to practice smaller chunks, because it does just what you said. It gives us a shorter feedback cycle, right?
Yeah.
So the other part that's related to that is we can connect to the great work of Daniel Coyle, who wrote the Talent Code. And part of what he brought forward that is brilliant is, it's not true that practice makes perfect. What's true is that effective practice leads to talent, leads to skill. So practice in and of itself, not necessarily helpful, because as one of my teachers used to say, you can be in a bad horse stance for 30 years, right? You can practice making same mistakes and being ineffective over and over again. However, if you have effective practice, which you do in a 2-minute block, a 5-minute block, you go through it, and then you can record it, and that's really valuable, because if you watch yourself, oh man, you can see what works and what doesn't work really clear. You can practice with other people and hear from them, and that's what we will do in a moment. Or you can just say it yourself, and you can feel for yourself, what did I like? What went well with that? Pay attention to what went well, and the next time you do it, that part will naturally come forward more. And you keep doing that over and over again, and you get better and better and better. That's effective practice.
Right.
All right. So all that said, who would like to have a little bit of practice and get the benefit of some practice, coaching, and feedback, which will be created in a very specific way so that it's effective, helpful, and gentle? And we'll just do a short round. Who would like to go? Andrea. Do you say Andrea or Andrea?
Either. Andrea works.
All right, cool. So let's do this. I'm going to share my screen again. And do you have something in mind already that you would like to speak about? Is there something you're preparing for, a topic or something that's coming up for you?
Yes and no, Daniel. This is super timely, because vocal expression has been my biggest stumbling block, and at the same time I feel like it's my mission. So I'm really new at this, and talking about the Ultimate Coach book. I'm a member of the community since it began, and I've been to all the book readings throughout for the last 2 years, and have become part of the background team that organizes those events. So yeah, I've stepped into a moderator role where we facilitate the meetings. And so talking about scripting, it was like, I have to memorize all this stuff, like the first moderator one needs to introduce everyone and acknowledge everyone, and just create the space for that. And then the moderator two gets to choose read the room and choose the readers, the guest readers. And moderator three gets to say thank you and make announcements. So I've taken on all those roles because it makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable, and at the same time I get to serve, and it just reminds me of Steve Hardison. He won an extemporaneous speech contest back in university for the country, some national contest, and he had been thinking about it all his life, so it wasn't scripted. He had just been living it, and yeah, so preparing for these readings as a moderator, as a facilitator, first thing was like, oh, I have to print out the whole script, and I stuck it to my computer and tried to get it that way, but it didn't work. It was like you said, it was like, I'm reading it. It's not coming from here. So what I learned from this whole being it is, first you need to connect with, get out of here and drop into here. And it doesn't matter like about anything else. It's our energy and our connection that people are connecting with. It's they get that more than the words. Like,
yeah,
Steve gave a speech, a graduation speech, and for the first 5 minutes he was just looking and connecting with everyone in the space. He looked them in the eye. He didn't say anything.
beautiful.
And then he just said one word at the end, and it was, or 3 words. He said, I love you. And then he sat down. That was his whole speech. So I think it's true what you said, that we can if we're really in our power, our authentic expression, we can read a telephone book It doesn't matter. It's our energy, our presence. We're right here. We're right now. We're not, and we're here focused on, like you said, the delivering and serving the people, not making a performance like, look at me, look at me. It's like, this is a message for you, not, this is not about me. This is about you.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. And so I'll say one quick thing, and then let's get you a little bit of practice, and we can share with everyone how it works. Because one further thing, like, I love the paraphrase of that Emerson quotation. The paraphrase that I use more often is, who you are speaks so loudly, nobody hears a word you say. But the flip side of this conversation is also that when we are in the energy of our authentic self, when we are in the state, when we are in the being that is of our highest self, the words and the body language that are effective or even eloquent, they will come, and they will come much more naturally, right? So being is primary, and there are skills that we learn that go on top of that that make it even more effective. So what, Andrea, if you have something, what's something that you are excited about or interested in that you might share with friends, or you might make a YouTube video about, or you might do a video for your Facebook page, or whatever it is? What's a topic that you could speak about? And it could be being a moderator, or it could be coming into more of a communicator.
Yeah, it's not, I think if it were to be a topic, Daniel, like, I got challenged the other day to just go live, and talk for what did he say, 2 minutes or 30 seconds or something? I think he said 2 minutes. And I was like, live? No, I don't want to do that. I just a little bit of preparation, and I got all nervous and in my head. And so what I'm really challenging myself to, Daniel, is and encouraging, championing me to take immediate action and not think about it. So the inspired thought, action, nothing in between, none of that.
Love
So
it.
that's what I'd love to do. I did one clunky kind of, I took the challenge immediately. I accepted it, and yeah.
All right, so I'm going to help you with that, if that's okay for you, right?
Totally.
And here's what we're going to do. And this is applicable for everyone. You could change the topic. You can do this on your own. You can come back when we do this next month, and I will say less and we will practice more. And what we're going to do is start a timer, and you speak from beginning to end. You start when the timer starts, you finish when it finishes, right? Give or take a second, but pretty much you follow that. And your task is to keep the show going the whole time. That's it. You just keep, the show must go on. Whatever it is you have to say. If you stumble, doesn't matter. You just keep, it's practice, right? We're all in the same boat here. Nobody is done. We're all in growth for it. And here's the topic. I'll make it easy for you. I'm going to say the start of a sentence, and then you just complete it and go onward. Onward. And the topic is, the sentence is, is this okay? Will this work for you to do it this way?
Yeah.
Okay. So the start of the sentence is, the benefits and joy of going live are, yeah. All right. Ready? Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, should just play when I press play. What's happening? All right. Well, good thing we got a backup. We'll do it the old school way, and we'll use the timer on the phone. All right. We're going to do 1 minute, 30 seconds. and I'll hold my phone up so you can see it that way. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Andrea.
Woohoo! 90 seconds. I get to speak on the joys of going live, like real time. So we're going live real time, and we're keeping the show rolling. So I'm just going to speak from whatever's coming up, even if it sounds like gibberish. And I love you, Daniel. I love you for doing this. This is just totally a blessing. And thank you all for being here. So I got this heart rate monitor thing on, which shows when I am in my body and when I'm in my head. So I'm breathing along with it. And if it lights up green, it means I'm good and I'm present and I'm breathing in sync with me. I've slowed down. So talking, slowing down. Yeah, because I've got the tendency, I don't know if any of you, to race ahead, and then I'm not present. So when I'm not present, this heart rate monitor goes red. It's like, you're disconnected. You're somewhere else. You're not here. You're not here. And the whole joy is being here like this. This is all we have, is right now, here. So like right now, I'm green. My heart, I did it.
You did it. Yes.
I did it.
Let's give her
Okay,
some Zoom
yay.
love for that. Awesome.
Yay, thanks.
Good job. And that was awesome what you said. So before, I'm going to wrap everything up in just a moment for y'all. And if any of you want to stay longer, we can do that. We want to get close to honoring the time as I set out. So what was one thing that went well, Andrea, that you liked about your talk?
Oh, it was fun. It was fun, and I didn't think about it.
That's beautiful. Awesome. And what's so great about doing that is it does, just like you spoke about with the heart monitor, it raises our heart rate up. It adds a level of stress. That's part of what the training does. If you walk across a piece of wood, like a plank, when it's on the ground, and it's like 1 inch high, it really doesn't produce a lot of fear, right? Everybody can do it. If you take that exact same plank and put it 20 stories up in the air, it's going to freak us out. And that's the exact same thing here. We all talk all the time. We do it all day. Doesn't freak us out. But when there's a timer, when there are people we don't know, when there's a stage, then stress level goes up. So practicing it in this way is fantastic. So let's hear from just one other person. What was something that you liked about what Andrea had to share? Who would
I
like
like how
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Daniel. I just love how she articulated her words. She took her time to make sure that she was precise about the exact words that she was saying. If you study successful speakers like I have, you'll know that they're very careful with the exact words that they want to use during their presentation, and how to articulate and how to slow down. Slowing down is better. Most people think they got to rush through it because they're so nervous. But I like how she took her time of choosing each word meticulously. That was fantastic. You did a great job, Andrea.
Wow.
Nice. Thank you,
Michael.
Michael. That's great. Agreed. Even as you spoke about the tendency to speed up, you paced it nicely. And we could say so much more. We could say so much more about Andrea. We could say so much more about speaking from being. However, we are past the time that I set for this group. So please, 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 if it's already time for you to step out, don't feel any compunction about that. Feel free. I appreciate that y'all joined. Especially since it's the first one. It will continue the third Thursday of the month at 3 p.m. Hawaii time in the future, which is 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, for a little while longer, then it'll change, but I'll keep you updated if you want to know about that. So I will happily stay around for a little longer though. And if you have questions or thoughts, please stay around. We can chat a little bit more. Otherwise, just thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate that you invested this time with me, and also that you're stepping up to be a more effective communicator. The world improving depends on you and us and our ability to communicate well. So thank you for risking, thank you for venturing into the unknown, and letting me be part of it. So
Thank you.
all that said, I'm going to stop our recording now. And anything else anyone else would like to say or ask?